Kansas City victorious in this one, 23-14. They advance to their 7th straight AFC Championship game, which is
it's a lot.
Bonkers to say. I think the Patriots went to 8 in a row. think they got them by 1. But Chiefs had another one. 7 in a row. Incredible. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players for the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Look at that, the ageless one. They said he was dead. They said he couldn't do it anymore, that he was washed.
He shaves off 5 years.
He's too old. It's playoff Travis Kelce. Come on. You knew this was happening.
2 of them at the top there.
He's at the very top. Well, look, Chris Jones has been doing it all season. Travis Kelce has not, but here we go. Kudos, 91.0 overall grade for Travis Kelce, the future Hall of Famer. Defensive tackle Chris Jones with a 79.0 at number 2. Charles Omenihu in the 3 spot with a 77.5. Cornerback Trent McDuffie, 74.4. Linebacker Drew Tranquil, a 73.8. And then Patrick Mahomes in this one, a 73.0. On Houston side of things, wide receiver Nico Collins, as he often is, at the very top of the list with an 85.5. Edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. with an 81.9. Edge rusher Danielle Hunter with an 80.8. Man, what a season that duo has had. They've been unbelievable this year. I know it's loss. Season didn't end when they wanted to, but hats off to them. Incredible job this season. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil at the 4 spot with a 75.9, and then linebacker Henry To'o with a 74.6. CJ Stroud in this one, an 85.3. Seth told the story here, Dalton.
Okay, so amid all of there was some controversy in this game, as we know.
Was there a Chiefs game? Controversy?
Just a weekly tradition.
I don't know about that.
There was some special teams issues, which seemed to prop up all the time for opposing teams going into Arrowhead. That seems to be a theme this year. At the end of all the other Texans' mistakes, I think if they just had any sort of respectable pass protection in this game, they very well could have won it. CJ Stroud pressured on 53.7% of his dropbacks. If he's pressured, if your quarterback's pressured at least 40% of the time, you're having issues. When you're over 50, you almost can't win a ball game. 40 for a team that had been struggling to pass protect all season. A 44.9 pass blocking grade, that was their season low. CJ Stroud in a clean pocket, 94.6 grade in this game. Under pressure, 56.6, which actually isn't horrible, but you just can't allow pressure 54% of the time. That's all this comes down to. That's all to me, aside from the injuries, obviously, to Tank Dillon, Stephon Diggs, and yeah, honestly, Stroud.
Which are big, right, in the grand scheme of things.
They're huge. And Stroud even found ways to work around that to guys, with Joe Mixon running the ball, with Xavier Hutchinson made some big catches in this game. Nico Collins is obviously a freak of nature. He's their best player on offense outside of Stroud. But if you can't pass protect in big spots against good teams and eventually against defensive coordinators like Steve Spagnuolo, who are going to bring the absolute heat when it matters, and especially who feels comfortable with guys like Stingley and Lassiter on the outside running man coverage against Collins and your group of very pedestrian receivers without Dell and Diggs. And even with those two, you have to be able to pass protect. And I worry about I'm watching this game with Stroud, and then I just go, man, this looks a lot like Burrow and the Bengals. It's like if you can protect this guy, he can move. You mentioned the tiers. Stroud can move into tier 1 if you just protect him. Please, for the rest of us, figure out how to. The Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, we're cool. Yeah, no issue there. The other 4 spots, please, Houston, figure this out so we can see a full season of MVP level CJ Stroud. Because I think he can get on that. This game looks so much to me like Burrow and just having to process things faster than he even should, and still finding ways to succeed. Because again, if that number instead of 54 is 35, the pressure rate, I think the Texans win this game. That's how good he was when it was at seeing the field, making the right throws when he was in a clean pocket.
I don't know if I'll ever say that because of this stat that I'm about to say.
The voodoo's still there in Arrowhead, and maybe we'll see it again next week. But the Texans, if they can just, and we've said this with the Bengals for years on end, if they can just find decent, I'm not asking for Eagles-level pass protection, just decent 12th ranked in the league pass protection, watch what C.J. Stroud can do. But if you're pressured 54% of the time, you can't win a playoff game.
my most disappointing in this game was the main culprit there, and that's rookie Blake Fisher. And I feel bad for him because he's a rookie going up against the Kansas City Chiefs and everything that Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw at you. Anytime you're a rookie playing along the offensive line, or if you're struggling along the offensive line, it's like when a backup corner comes in for a starter who gets hurt, and the offense immediately goes, we're throwing at that guy. It's kind of like, all right, we got a young guy on the offensive line, and Steve Spagnuolo is like, we're going to overload that guy. And unfortunately, it was right tackle Blake Fisher in this one. 33.7 pass blocking grade, 7 pressures allowed, 16.4% pressure percentage on the whole game. That's not good. So it wasn't just Blake Fisher. It was the offense as a whole. But the Texans were not built. This Texans team is not built for a deep playoff run this year. They're not. They're built to be a good football team, but they're young in certain areas on the defensive side of things. They're still figuring it out along the interior defensive line, and then specifically the injuries that they had to the playmakers on offense throughout the year, and then the offensive line specifically. They have to get much better up front going into next year to be able to be a serious, deep playoff contender. My stat that told the story in this game, and the reason why I was joking a little bit with you with, I don't even know if that would have done it for the Houston Texans. This one's from our pal Ben Solak, who does a great job covering the NFL for ESPN. He tweeted this out after the game. Per ESPN stats and info, the Texans are the first team to outgain their opponent by more than 100 yards, not turn the ball over, and lose a postseason game. The previous teams, 49-0. I don't know how Kansas City keeps doing it.
212 total yards.
I don't know how. I do not know how Kansas City keeps doing it. Because at least in the first 2 games that we covered tonight, why did the Rams lose? Turnovers. Why did the Ravens lose? Turnovers. Texans didn't turn the ball over. They moved the ball down the field. It's just, Kansas City just wins. It's wild. I think that look, I can understand that some people would say, oh my gosh, like this would be like the worst Kansas City Chiefs team out of the three-peat to win it. This would be like the most fraud team to ever win it. I'm starting to believe this is actually the most impressive. If they three-peat, if they win a Super Bowl with this team, the way that they have been playing, it is the most unbelievable example of winning culture, clutch players, and a wisdom among this coaching staff that is just, we might lose more than we even win when it comes to snap-by-snap bases in a game. But we're going to win the snaps that matter the most. And those are the George Karlaftis sacks, the Chris Jones sacks, and the conversions on third down, the plays where Travis Kelce is wide open to nobody, the throws that need to be, but whatever it is, man. I know people are going to talk about the refs and the officials. I get it. It was a bad week all around for NFL officiating crews. It really was. And there were some bad calls in this Kansas City game, but there were some bad calls in some other games too. So obviously that's a factor that sometimes goes into it because it can go one way for a certain team. But I just we're running out of ways to be like, how are the Chiefs going to win by the slimmest margin of error this time? And they certainly did by, again, making history, being the first team to win under circumstances like that.
I can remember Peyton Manning saying, I think actually at his retirement press conference, the little things aren't so little. And that's what the Chiefs have on their side is the little things, right? You mentioned the 8 sacks, and we've talked about the pass protection. Texans only went 1 for 3 in the red zone. You got to finish drives against this team. Field goals, no matter how explosive or not their offense is, you got to get 7s instead of 3s and 0s. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. And the other one too that played a big factor in this is the Texans, of course, in this game at Arrowhead, they played their worst special teams game of the year. They had the long opening kickoff. They had a blocked field goal at the end. They had was there another missed kick? I forget the other. There was just special teams, that handful of plays that can happen, that 20 to 25 plays a game, can make a huge difference, right? Sometimes sometimes you go whole games where you don't notice any of the special teams units at all, right? And the games that you do, usually they're back-breaking plays. Mm-hmm. And you just have a scenario here where the Chiefs in all 3 phases, and very often this year, in almost every game this year, they have not gotten all 3 to click at the same time. We've seen in past years where they've gotten it to, but then this year you have, okay, all right, they play a whatever game against the Broncos. Then they block a field goal at the end and win, because of course they do. Or, then maybe this is a day that Mahomes saves them the way he usually does, right? Or you get the defense with just a lights-out performance, which actually, their defense it was still pretty good in this game. You rack up 8 sacks, you hold the team 1 for 3 in the red zone.
Right.
I mean,
I was going to say, they may not have all 3 phases clicking at the same time throughout the season, but they never have less than 2 out of 3.
You played
and that's why Kansas City wins.
You played an easy top 8 quarterback in this league, and you gave up 1 touchdown.
Kansas City, I cannot remember the last game that Kansas City truly lost, And every week we get teams that...
And they really only lost 1 game this year at all.
Right. And it was to a good football team, right? It's not like they're blatantly losing that football game. I'm saying there are teams, even the best teams in the NFL, that over the years, they lose football games. They do something to lose this football game.
Yeah.
If it's happened, it's very, 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 very few times that the Chiefs ever lose a football game. Normally, when you beat Kansas City, it's not about them beating themselves. You somehow have to beat them at their best because there's just not many times where they're not the best version of whatever that roster is.
I think it's probably been 3. Think about this. I think it's been 3 years, the last one I could really remember, that AFC title game against the Bengals.
Against the Bengals.
I think that's the last time I can remember them beating themselves.
And that's them sort of barely opening the door for the Bengals.
And they still lost that game in overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, for a trip to go to the Super Bowl.
The floor of the Chiefs is... I don't mean to disrespect the Patriots dynasty because perhaps it's worthy of saying that they were sort of on that similar path.
It's similar.
But what I'm saying is the floor of these teams is unbelievably high every single time they kick the ball off. It's just insane. If you don't play your best game, they are not going to give it to you. They will not lose the football game. And that's how the dynasty has gone as long as it has.
They embody that as much as Brady and Belichick did, especially in Brady's late 30s and all of. They refuse to beat themselves.
Most impressive for me is Will Anderson Jr. I'll give him a shout out. 81.9 overall grade, as we saw there. 70.9 run defense grade, 74.8 pass rush grade, 2 sacks, 23.1 pass rush win percentage. I think Will Anderson took a really big step this year overall, and I don't think we talk about him in that top tier of edge rushers in the NFL, but I really do feel as though after this year, over the next couple of seasons, we're going to talk about him as just a pure all-around player. I'm not saying that he's about to be TJ Watt, but you know how we talk about TJ Watt is just such a great run defender, such a great pass rusher as well, just somebody who is so good at everything that it takes to be great at the edge rush position. I think Will Anderson is getting to that point.
Absolute monster. I mean, there's no other way to put that. Hard not to make it. And it's a deep group of edge players who are watching in the NFL right now, but it's hard not to have him maybe on that back end of the top 10. He's incredible. No, he's a problem. And you know what? Look, the Chiefs only had 212 yards total in this game. They're playing against a really good hot defense. Anderson and Hunter off the edge give you issues, and Stingley and Lassiter at corner give you issues. It's tough to throw outside because the Chiefs still don't have an elite receiving core. There's some good players, but they're getting locked up on the outside. But tell you what, it feels good to have Old Reliable give you his best game of the season, doesn't it? And you know what? When the Chiefs, when Andy Reid asks himself, he must ask himself, okay, we're playing Houston this week. They got Stingley and Lassiter outside. I can't throw outside the numbers. What am I possibly going to do? Oh yeah, I have the greatest tight end ever. That'll do it. And he gives us 7 catches for $117 and a 91.1 receiving grade. Okay. Hey, Travis, you mind having your best game of the year today? That'll help. You think you can do that?
I'm sure he didn't mind at all.
Well, and of course, he answered the question with a question. And he said, Coach Reid, is it playoff time? And Andy Reid goes, well, yeah. Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, I'll throw up $120 for you and just dominate over the middle in this game because you're not throwing outside on the Texans. That's not a thing. That's not going to be a thing for a few years. You mentioned it at the top. What are we supposed to say about playoff Travis Kelce at this point? It's Travis Kelce.
He's going to show up.
It's Travis Kelce and Jerry Rice. That's the numbers we keep getting thrown at us through all these broadcasts. That's how good he is in the playoffs.
Yep.
He's maybe the greatest playoff receiver ever playing tight end. The rest of the team had 9 catches for 60 yards, and the Chiefs, I believe, only had 50 yards rushing on the day. So it's just Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Steve Spagnuolo.
Doing what they needed to do?
Yeah. And the Arrowhead voodoo, that's just where it's at.
Most disappointing for you?
Azeez Al-Shaair at linebacker, tough game. He was responsible for Kelce there a couple of times. 3 catches allowed, 63 yards, the touchdown. There was another play that Kelce had about 15 yards on that got called back due to penalty. 3 missed tackles. Big piece of the Texans defense, but he's the one who really got taken advantage of in this game.
Yep. And then there were 4. The Bills and the Chiefs, the Commanders, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Those are the 4 teams left that we have here in the NFL playoffs here for Conference Championship weekend coming up next weekend. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.